Welcome to another episode of What Are You Reading? What Are You Writing? I am so glad that you chose to be with us today. I am your host, Karen E. Osborne, and I am delighted to introduce you to my guest today, Iris Glazner Leigh. Hey, Iris.
Hey, Karen. Thank you.
It's nice to see you. So, Iris, let me tell you a little bit about her. She is the author of Liza's Secrets, a fast paced domestic suspense novel set in idyllic Chatham. Iris Page Turner is told with juxtaposing tension and humor. I love that. Tension and humor. That's so good. It's a fun read and should be in every beach bag and every book club list. What would you do if you had to hide and had no place to go? So that's the story question. So this sounds like so much fun. Let us just dive in. So tell us a little bit more about the premise of the book.
So it started when I was not able to get a car loan because we had an open loan on our home equity. And I didn't realize that either of us could pull it. And once we both signed, either of us could take money out. And so I, approached my husband and he said, "Oh, I didn't get around to closing it, but all the home equity counts against you when you're trying to get a loan." And so I thought, what if somebody really was trying to steal the other's home equity? Like just take all the money.
Mm,
There'd be nothing
mm,
to stop them. And then I had some problems with the brakes on my car, and which is why I was trying to get a car loan. And my husband, couldn't the mechanic couldn't figure out why they never really worked well. And so that led me to think, well, what if someone wanted to plan the perfect murder? They would just make sure those brakes never really worked. And the mechanic would say, "No, I checked them, they were fine." So I had like
mm.
the perfect motive, the perfect murder all lined up. And Liza figures it out. She sees that this is happening and she says, "Well, I got to get out of here." And her husband's really a nasty guy. And I've
Mm.
portrayed him as a nasty guy in the number of chapters. It's told in different points of view. And he's always looking for somebody to fix his problems. He's got a lot of money issues. He's owing money to people. He's always, checking out the ladies everywhere. And she's, just sort of been innocently going along with all this until she figures out she's in danger. So the premise of the book is really, where would you go and who would you get to help you and how would you get the money, and where would you disappear to, what would you take
Yeah.
with you? So
Mm.
those were those were the premises and the way the book started. So
Cool.
it starts
Yeah.
with her on the road, leaving metropolitan New Jersey. She lives in a beautiful home in a beautiful area of New Jersey, very, very posh. And she's in her car, in an older car with her cat and some of her belongings, trying to figure out, how to
Okay.
get her away from her husband. He's on a business trip, and she understands with, his personal trainer. So she knows she has some time and she's going to get out, and it's midnight and she's leaving in the middle of the night. So that's kind of how it
Wow.
starts.
Yeah, yeah, wow. So what inspired this book? You told me about the two incidents that made you think like, oh, that could be a book. But what is it that made you actually want to write thriller, write a
So
suspense novel?
I took a course on Cape Cod with Paul Kemper Coase in writing, and I didn't really do anything with that class at that point. I kind of, went through the exercises and thought, this is harder than I expected. And then a couple years later, or maybe a year or so later, it was around 2007, I signed up for You Really Want to Write a Book. It was an adult ed course in the summer. And what really inspired me was I ran into a group of women in that class. And believe it or not, we're still all together, or most of us are together to this day as a writing group. And we were each sort of going through how how would we put our stories down on paper? And so I got inspired because everyone was doing it. And so I kind of figured out a way to write that I had never really thought about before. And it was each time I'd sit down, I would just say, so what could possibly happen next? And that's kind of how I wrote. And to this day, that's how I write. It's like, I don't plot it. I don't think about it. I just say, well, if she wound up, in Rhode Island or in Cape Cod, what would happen next? Where would she go? She'd have to find a place to sleep. Okay, she finds a place to sleep. What happens next? She has to find a place to eat, et cetera, et cetera. And I just wrote this whole book in pieces like that.
Yeah, what could possibly, and I like the question, what could possibly go wrong? Because
Yeah.
that's, to be a page turner, we have to constantly think about what could possibly go wrong at this point as they're looking. So I noticed, I just want to say something about writers groups. I have been writing with a group of women for 20 years.
Yeah.
And we write from long distance. Two of them live in Australia, and we only met person to person in 2017 when my first book came out. I
Mhm.
I flew to Australia, and my husband and I did, and we met them. But writing groups are the bomb. They are the best, right? They
Yeah.
support us and give us honest feedback, and
Yeah,
writing
no,
groups are
this group has
awesome.
been like a really lifesaver for me. And we met once a week from 2007, I think, up until 2020. And then during COVID, we met on Zoom. And then about half the group broke off because they just didn't want to do Zoom and, didn't want to continue writing. But there's still like five of us that still meet on Zoom, not 3 times a week like we did during COVID, but we do regularly meet, and it's kind of a fun group. So yeah.
Yeah, that is awesome. That is awesome. So I noticed when I was doing a little research on you that you envisioned this book as a series.
Mhm.
Yeah. So tell us about that. What are some of the challenges of, what do you have to think about while you're writing the first book and knowing that you want it to be a series?
So that's a great question. It's what I call an accidental series. So I never even thought I'd write the first book. So I write the first book and send it out to agents, and it's very rough. And now that I look back at it, I kind of laugh and think, I can't believe that's what I sent out, but I did. And of course, got rejected, the usual, 100 rejections or whatever. And I said, oh, I don't really like to market my stuff. I think I'll just write another book. And so I always have an
Mm.
idea for a book, and I decided to keep Liza as she becomes a PI by the second book. That's not a spoiler alert. And she's a PI, and she's living in Chatham, where she starts in this book. And she takes on cases of missing people because she knows how to disappear. And so she becomes very successful in it. And so book two became a book about a missing girl. And I have to say, I might reorganize the next the next one that I try to publish. But in honesty, I've written six because
Yeah.
especially during COVID, it was like we just kept writing. I just kept writing. So I've written six, and I have ideas for seven, eight, nine. I'm partially into seven, and I just have ideas. And sometimes you can see I'm sitting by a window. So I looked out the window. One of my books is the last, no, it may not be the last one anyway. I was looking at the window and saw like some new people moving in. And I started thinking, well, they have all new furniture because it's all new. Wayside shows up. Who moves in with all new furniture? Maybe they're on the run. And so one of my books was just inspired by me being a nosy neighbor. So realistically, it's like, don't
Oh,
walk by my window because you're going to be in a book,
you're gonna
basically.
be in my book. Absolutely. So I was just speaking with a writer who is Dale Ward, and he is an Emmy-winning uh, movie producer. And I was asking him, does he think his book, uh, Killing the Butterfly, should become a movie? And so we ended up talking about movies. And that made me think about you. Do you see this book? Could this book be a movie? And
This book
who
could
might
be,
be in it?
yeah, so this book would be a great movie because it takes place in Chatham on Cape Cod, which is kind of an idyllic setting. It's like
Mm,
a lot of times they use this setting. In fact, right up the street, they used it for a Nantucket book because it has that look, that vibe. But I think it would be a great movie. Nicole Kidman was shooting a movie around the corner, really less than a mile from here. I don't know if she finished or not, but I thought, wow, she might come back. Maybe she'd come back. I don't know. But I could see it has to be someone with a little bit of humor and a little bit older because Liza is not 25. She's in her
mm,
50s when this starts. And so I was thinking of Alexandria Bornstein or Maya Rudolph or even Patricia Arquette might be great
mhm, mhm.
actresses. And then I asked around and took a poll on who might be Jeff, her boyfriend, and I got Paul Rudd as a great answer. So
That's a great
yeah,
answer.
yeah, I thought so too. So yeah, I've
That's a
already got
good
a
one.
cast. I've got a cast. I've got, the person who I'm just looking for someone to call and say, how about let's do this?
Let's do this. Let's make this a movie. So Liza, you're going to have to stick with Liza. I mean, you're stuck with her for
Yeah,
books and books and books. So
yeah.
what do you most admire about her as a
Well,
person?
she's an acute observer of people. And, she sort of sees people as they are and finds herself really analyzing things. And that's real valuable, especially as she moves to off-season Cape Cod, because she's trying to figure out, well, I'm a metropolitan New Yorker, and now I'm living in this very small New England town in the winter rather, where summer it's, you could get lost here. Anybody could just do anything. But in the winter, you stand out. And so she's trying to figure out how does she figure into this small town? And she knows she doesn't look like everyone else. And she knows that she doesn't have the right clothes and she doesn't have the right accent to her voice. So
Mm,
she's very big at observing and trying to figure out how to fit that in. The other thing that I think is really nice about her is she's got a great sense of humor and she can see humor in lots of things. And because of that, I think that makes people like her because I really believe you
mm,
have to like your main character for that character to really sort of shine. If, or either like them or hate them. And her husband, I made sure, he was hateable, but I wanted her
yes.
to be lovable. And she has a cat that she just loves her cat. And, her cat is a real big feature in all of my books. I've always had cats in them. And the other part that I thought was nice about her is she's trusting, even though she doesn't shouldn't be trusting, she does trust. Eventually, it takes her a long time, but she eventually gets to trust people and learns that that's a good thing. And the other one is she wants to belong. She wants to be somewhere,
Mm,
so those are the things I think are, off the cuff, some of her better attributes.
yeah, yeah, that sounds cool. And what gets her in trouble?
Well,
What trait, what characteristic gets her in trouble?
so she's not overly confident, at least in the beginning of
Mm,
this book. And her lack of confidence, oozes and people take advantage of it. Like she works in a store and the manager is pretty mean to her, and yet she takes it. Her husband, her ex-husband or her husband is pretty mean to her also, and she takes it. She doesn't
mm,
really stand up for herself as well as she could. The other thing she doesn't know is what are her strengths. Like she doesn't really
mm.
understand that she's a bright woman and that she shouldn't be tolerating a lot of stuff and that she's good at things. So she has to learn that.
Yeah, and she has time because she has 9 books. So
She gets pretty good at the end of this one. And she's more of a take charger by then. So yeah.
good, good. So, as you think about, your writing life,
Mhm.
you know, or just life, are there any authors or books that really had a big impact on you, on your writing style, or how you think about life?
Yeah, there are. When I was about 7, I read a book called The Sapphire Signet, and I went online today, and it's still out there by Augusta Seaman. And it was like it was a young adult sort of kids mystery about a lost treasure in New York City. And it fascinated me to see people hunting for this lost treasure, and they were young people. And I really thought I'd love to write like that, love to have a mystery, love to think about it. And for years, I've always been a mystery reader. And when I was about 11, I was writing plays and books myself, but obviously they weren't too mature. But I always really had a sense of writing was something that was a way to take you out of your life and go somewhere else. And
Yes.
so I really like that. And books like Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier always brought
Mm.
you to a new place. Books that brought you to England, and just what it looks like in different parts of the world. I mean, I didn't grow up traveling, and so all these were ways that I could go somewhere. I love thrillers, and I really, any of the thrillers, Daniel Silva and Joseph Finder, Ken Foley, I read those when they come out. I love people rich books, I call them, the Barbara Kingsolvers and the Jodi Picoults, and
Yeah.
the books that really look at people and their problems. And with Liza, I tried to bring the two together a little bit,
Mm.
in my writing. So there's some mystery, there's some suspense, and all of the books I've written, they don't really fall into just one genre. They're really interactive characters, and they have lives, and their lives are sometimes, they get sick. I mean, in one of my books I was writing that she had to have a gallbladder out. I mean, people can get sick. People, can do things,
Things
they can
happen to real people, and these characters are real people.
yeah.
That sounds really good. Is there a book that you've read recently that you could recommend to our audience?
Well, right now I just came back from vacation, so I looked at the list of books I just read and thought, "Holy crow!" I love Coast by Tess Gerritsen. That was just a book I love that because it was a book about older CIA agents who are retired, and
Hmm,
they solve stuff, and no one in town suspects them because they're older. And I love, I have an older character in my book, and I love the fact that people very much underestimate older people and
they
what they're so
do.
capable of. I love that. I love Little Monsters by Adrienne Brodeur. I'm not sure how to pronounce her name, but it takes place on Cape Cod, and it's a very dysfunctional family. And the setting of Cape Cod is just fabulous. She did a great job with that. And I just finished, I'm reading right now After Annie by Anna Quinlan. She writes very
Mm,
heartfelt
yeah,
books. And
yeah, she does.
so those are just three that, are fast on my list. As I said, I read about 5 books last week. I was like on one of those vacations where you do nothing but read. And I was like, this is the best ever.
Nirvana. Yes.
Was.
That's the best. So now that you've got our audience all intrigued, they want to read your books, they want to find out more about you.
Mhm.
Where can they find you?
So I have a website. I have a web page. It's irisglee.com. And I have a picture of the cover of my book. It's
Let's
not
see
out
it.
yet, but I do have a picture of it. And I think it's a great,
Oh, isn't
um,
that a great cover? That's
yeah, it's a great
gorgeous.
cover.
That's
It's
gorgeous.
it's at blackrosewriting.com as well as on Amazon. So it's not ready to be ordered until April. You can pre-order it, but it won't come out till April 4th.
Yeah, but
So
we're pre-recording, we're
right.
recording,
So
so
okay.
by the time this is shown, your book is out in the
Oh,
world,
perfect.
and then people can just go and get it. They can get it every place that a book is sold,
Oh,
borrowed.
perfect. That's great.
Yes, yes. And so your website is the best place. Are you on social media?
I am. I'm on Facebook, Iris G. Glazner Leigh. So that's the same as what you can see in the corner here. And I am on Instagram also. I try to do some of the social media things as best I can, but somehow I find myself I find myself promoting it, and then I think I don't know how many people are actually seeing it. It's been kind of complicated for me. I have a love-hate, I think, with Facebook at the moment.
Me too. Me too.
So
So
my
I
website is
hope
great. I just so just as a shout out, I'm giving talks all over libraries all over the Cape, as well as one so far booked outside of Boston. And I'm happy to zoom into a book group, and I have book club questions on my website. So
excellent. Excellent, excellent. We love book clubs. We love book clubs. So we want to thank you both, Iris, and I want to thank you so much for joining us today. Her book came out April 4th. That's its publication day. And so when you're watching this, it's available everywhere. I hope you will buy it, read it, review it. You guys know how important reviews are. I'm always telling you. And we also hope that you will let Iris know on any of her social media or on her website that you met her here. And what are you reading? What are you writing? Thank you, everybody. I hope to see you next week. Bye bye.